Indonesia economic impact after COVID-19.
Since the beginning of 2020, precisely in March, Indonesia has been shocked by one of these phenomena, namely the COVID-19 pandemic. Coronavirus disease or COVID-19 is an infection disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. The virus originated in Wuhan, China. And on March 2, 2020, the first coronavirus in Indonesia was announced. The government confirmed case 1 and 2 of a mother, 64, and her daughter, 31, in Depok, West Java. Both were infected with corona by a Japanese citizen who had to come Indonesia in February 2020.
Most people infected with the virus will experience mild to moderate respiratory illness and recover without requiring special treatment. The virus can spread from an infected person's mouth or nose in small liquid particles when they cough, sneeze, speak, sing, or breathe.
Anyone can get sick with the COVID-19 and become seriously ill or die at any age. As of August 2020, the total number of cases in Indonesia was 165,887 with 7,169 deaths in 34 provinces. The spread and increase in the number of COVID-19 cases occur very quickly and will have an impact on the decline in the Indonesian economy. This research aims to find out the policies that have been made by the government to deal with the current outbreak and see the economic impact that occurs in Indonesia. This study shows that the policies made by the government in handling COVID-19 can indirectly lead to a decline in economic growth in Indonesia. Impact on the economic sector due to the COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia includes layoffs, the occurrence of PMI manufacturing in Indonesia. This creates import, increased prices, inflation, and losses in the tourism sectors, which cause a decrease in occupancy.
We're 6 months into this pandemic, and what we're seeing is that it's really something that's unprecedented. We've seen huge drops in consumer spending, which in turn has impacted small businesses, which in turn has impacted employment. It's really unique in the sense that it doesn't look like previous recessions. When we look at who's been hit hardest, one thing we see is that consumer spending has dropped precipitously, especially right after COVID cases started going up in early March. But something we saw is that the drop in consumer spending was most extreme with high-income individuals. So it was high-income families who really stopped spending. And in part, this is because high-income families can self-isolate, they can work remotely, and they're the ones who are really not going to their local restaurants, local bars, and local small businesses. Usually these higher income communities are somewhat buffered from these economic shocks. But in this case, it's actually those low-income workers who are working in these high-income communities who are facing the biggest brunt of this crisis. So for example, I'm in New York now. If you were a low-income worker and you were working in a restaurant or bar in Manhattan, a very high-income community, there was a 70% chance that you lost your job. Whereas if you're working in the Bronx, a somewhat lower income community, a similar low-income worker working in a bar or restaurant in that neighborhood only had a 30% chance of losing their job. So workers are getting hit across the board, but in this case, they're being hit especially hard in some of these higher income communities. At Opportunity Insights, we specialize in big data. And so we're able to measure the impacts of the COVID-19 crisis using private sector information. The data really shows us that we need to support those families and individuals that have been hit hardest by this crisis, right? So those families that have lost their jobs, especially focusing on expanding unemployment insurance and really providing those supports to those folks who are losing dollars every day because they aren't able to go to work. Something else we're seeing, besides the employment impacts, are impacts on education. We're seeing that once schools shut down, that low-income families and low-income communities were being hit hardest. Families and children in those communities had the highest levels of drop-off in terms of student engagement and student progress. So we really need to be focusing on those most vulnerable families and those most vulnerable communities. The economy, consumer spending, and these economic trends are really being driven by concerns around the public health crisis. If we really want to move into real recovery, we have to deal with the virus head-on, and until we deal with the public health crisis, the economy is not going to rebound fully.
As a result of this, it is hoped that Indonesian government will be more alert in dealing with the decline in economic growth in Indonesia caused by Covid-19. There are many sectors in online business, so business people who want to invest need to grasp what online businesses are popular and profitable in current Covid-19 pandemic era, such as e-commerce, edutech, and health. Startup business sectors that are precisely because of the pandemic have experienced a significant increase in business, where online health platforms such as Halodoc have become popular for helping the public who only want to consult and diagnose health online. The e-commerce business has also become the public's main need for transaction during this pandemic, considering that people are afraid of shopping in person, so that the purchase of some needs is done online through e-commerce platform. People are increasingly avoiding public place and offline retail store, so online sales for several sectors are increasing. According to the website nellypetal.com, change in the food, health, and pharmaceutical sector have greatly increased. The food sector experienced an increase of 55%, health 19%, and pharmaceuticals 11%. In the United States alone, online sales are predicted to increase to 12% of total spending in 2020. From this result, it can be concluded that behind the many benefits of online e-commerce business, there are still many impacts for the other offline business people who do not use social media as a means of business.